Perfect. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, lovely people, depending on where you're watching us from in this beautiful world. Today, I am so pumped. Little side note for this conversation, I took a note and said, buckle up for this one. So, I am so happy to have this lovely lady next to me. Holly and I connected on the platform that I've mentioned many times before on Podmatch. Holly, welcome. And would you do us the honor to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. Thanks, Marie, for having me. I love meeting new people. It's awesome. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was about 12. I've had 11 startup companies. Um, on a personal note, I am married with 8 children that are adults, and I have 17 grandkids. So yeah, it's been a challenging few years. Usually my business crossed over. I had three or four at a time. So I'm good at juggling for sure. And it just changes. Like there's lots of things that
Yeah.
go, there's ups and downs, and it really is our mindset that changes who we are and how we react to things. So that's kind of a sum up in a quick nutshell for you.
You're already speaking my language, and I'm just so excited. I cannot believe like 8 children, 17 grandchildren. You honestly don't come across like that. You like literally, I don't even know what a person is supposed to look like when you have 8 kids and 17 grandkids, but you look so fit, you look so young, you look so, oh my God, so chilled. Like I honestly, I'm in awe. 8 children. I've got 2 sons. I'm doing great. I cannot imagine having 8 children.
I always tell my husband, I can't imagine only having two, one or two.
Mm.
Like I don't know what we'd have done. I said, but if I could have picked my best, he's like, yeah, which ones would you have picked? Some are more challenging than others, but I'll take them all. They're all good
I
kids.
love that you say that. And, I've got a couple of friends that have got many children. I myself come out of a family where there is a lot of children. My mom is one of 9, I'm one of 5. And so many people get frustrated when people make comments about that. How on earth and da da da. And my favorite quote that I've seen one day, and I keep sending it to people when they get frustrated about weird comments from other people, is if you think my hands are full, you should see my heart. And I love this so much. It is
I
such a
love
beautiful
that.
quote. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
I can hear
So,
that heart beating behind me. The heart.
yeah.
It's hard to tell
Oh,
it's a heart
speaking
because of the light, but
speaking Yeah,
yeah.
love it though. Just a quick side note, speaking about behind me, I had major internet drama this morning. So my beautiful, lovely friend, and she so deserves a shout out, Sarah Rowan. She's a speed painter and keynote speaker. I'm in her house at the moment. You can see by the artwork. She's just phenomenal. So if you want any information on that, I'll hook you up. Back to Holly. This was a short ad break. Holly, you and I had a quick conversation, and as I said, I was just blown away by your story. You have got so many incredible experiences that you went through, and I don't want to take anything up front, so I let you lead the story. Do you mind sharing your story and what happened along the way, and then we get to where you're at today? I let you
Oh,
have the
absolutely.
microphone.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have lots of stories and they take way longer than your podcast, probably each story. And
You'll
so
have to
we're
come
just
back.
gonna like wrap it all up into, and they can go search more
Yeah,
about things later. But and I
yeah.
have a book coming out that's gonna tell a lot of the stories as well coming out.
We'll
Hopefully by
share
the
that
end of the
later as
year.
well.
Yeah. So really my world changer for me, having yeah, I had all these companies. I had 9 until 3 years ago, and we all suffered during COVID. Nobody likes to hear
Mm,
the word, right? It's like the new F
mm,
word is the COVID word. And
yeah.
we all have it. We all know people that passed away. We all had personal experience. Like, I can't think of anything in the whole world, in the history of the world, that affected everybody so quickly and everyone,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Um, I never thought I would get COVID. I was a really healthy person and had
Same.
was on no medication. And I went to a conference and I came sick with COVID and ended up a
Mm,
week later in the hospital for 70 days, 70.
wow. Wow.
And that I was on intubation 2 times. I had a tracheotomy. I had sepsis, lots of other life-threatening infections. Every day was like, is she going to live? Like, is this the
Mm,
day? And that
yeah.
really was a game changer for me because whatever your belief or your audience belief is, mine's God. That's who came and
Mm,
spoke to me many times.
mm,
I had the, so let's just say I had a whole bunch of out of body. I had a spiritual transformational experience and a near death experience. And I
wow.
didn't know they were different. I actually
Hmm.
didn't even know the spiritual and the near death were different
Hmm.
experiences until I thought I had two near death. And
Yeah.
then when I learned about
I
these
don't
things,
even
I
know
was
the
like, oh,
difference.
that's,
So I'd really love for you to enlighten us what the exact difference is. And if you want
yeah.
to share details about that, I'd really love to hear it.
Oh, sure. So an out of body is when, like, astral traveling, you can Google that
Hmm.
and learn more about it. It's
Yeah.
when you can actually do that on your own in
Hmm.
meditation. It's when you're
Mm.
out of your, like, you leave your body and go
Yeah.
places. You travel places.
Yeah.
Well, I did tons
Yeah.
of that, and I have stories that were creepy,
Mm.
scary, funny, you name it. I could get you rolling on the ground on a few of them. So I had a whole bunch of those. But then I had a defining moment with a spiritual, and that's what it is. It's a spiritual experience. And for me, that moment was the defining moment of whether I was going to live or die. Because at the time, my
Wow.
prayer was, if this sucks and I'm not
Mm.
liking where I'm at and what's happening to my body right now,
Yeah.
if I'm going to die, then take me, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to live, get me better. That was my prayer.
Yeah.
And
Either
then I
way,
had,
get me out of here.
yeah, I was just like, I was
Yeah.
done. And
Yeah.
I was like the first 2 weeks of the 70 days I was in there when I had most of these experiences, because that's when I was the worst. And so
Yeah.
I had that experience. Basically, it was spiritual, and I had people that had passed on. My mom had died just a year and a half before. I had a grandbaby that just lived a couple days. She was there, but she was
Mm.
an adult, but I knew it was
Hmm.
her. I had a brother that had passed away and a sister-in-law that passed away. My grandparents, my favorite aunt, all of them appear to me. And
Wow.
basically, my mom said, "It's not your time to go."
Mm.
And then she said, "And you need to fight." And I never liked that word, fight. I don't like fight. And
Yeah.
when she said that, that's when all the other people appeared in white. So I knew all of them were the people that had passed on. And every
Mm.
time they chanted the word fight, a whole new group of people would appear behind
Wow.
them and behind him. Like, as far as I could see, so many people. There it was, my kids and my siblings and my best friends and all these people like I didn't know, which now looking back, I realize I was on so many people's prayer lists. Like, my social media had 200 to 400 comments every time my sisters
Wow.
would post for prayers or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, heartfelt comments. And
Yeah.
I know now all those people were showing me that they were praying for me and they were supporting me. They may not have
Oh,
known me,
yeah.
but I had that
The
much
power
support.
of prayer.
And it was that moment when I knew I was going to live. That's all I needed to know was like, we
Mm.
got you. You got to just
Hmm.
fight, but we got you. And it was a long journey, months and months and months of a journey back. And, but I knew I'd at least live, right? I didn't know what that looked
Yeah.
like, but I knew I'd live. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's that. And then a near death is that it's when you are near death
Wow.
or you die. There are so many different stories that people experience. A lot of
Yeah.
similarities happen, but everybody has their own story. I
Mm.
personally believe in a near death that we get to see how we believe something. So for me,
Yeah.
and I've never heard anyone else say this, but it's my opinion that
Hmm.
if you believe in one way, like for instance, if you're a Christian and you believe
Hmm.
that way, then your experience is going to be based around what you believe is true and what you know is true. That's how I feel like you're going to see your near death experience, where
I've
other
never
people,
thought about it this way. That's incredible. Of
that's just
course.
the way my gut and my
Yeah.
intuition tells me that's. So for me, my experience was different than somebody else's, obviously.
Mm.
Um, there was a lot of things though with so if you had COVID and you got the COVID fog and everything else, because long COVID came after I got out of the hospital. I still have long
Mm.
COVID and a lot of different diagnoses, because remember I said I was healthy, no medications. I walked out on a
Mm.
dozen medications. I got off them quickly because I'm a natural healer and I just really
Mm.
didn't want to be medicated. That was by choice, not judging anybody else for their choices. But for me,
Yeah.
I feel like our bodies are made to heal. And I never thought, I've only been really better, like maybe 95% better, which might be the best I ever get. Right.
Mm.
But I never thought that I was 75% probably for a long, long time. And only until
Yeah.
about 7 or 8 months ago was I better, like where I
Hmm.
literally took a nonprofit mission and said, I don't want to live this mission anymore because it put me in
Yeah.
the energy of sickness and I wanted to be in the
Yeah.
energy of wellness. And it just, I
Yeah.
felt like it just hit me like a ton of bricks one day. Like, this is not your mission anymore. You
Mm.
served the mission of what you wanted to do, and now it's time to move on to bigger and better things. So
Do you
anyway,
mind me saying something to that? Because I find this so fascinating and it speaks really close to my heart because I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but most people following my podcast would know this. I ran a movement for 5 years called Loving Life After Loss, and I've taken thousands of people onto their healing path in those 5 years. And the one thing that I always felt or I knew was the major differentiator between my group, my movement, and lots and lots of other grief groups was that our focus was on the healing, on the loving life after loss, and not on the grief. So I've encountered so many people that I either connected with or even interviewed or that work in the space of grief where their focus is grief. And I feel that they have set themselves up for being stuck in a space of grief for the rest of their life versus
mhm.
my focus. And I know it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but this is not about me. This is about the thousands of other people listening to the
Yeah.
podcast, having come to the programs,
Mhm.
having, just followed that path of healing.
Yeah.
That I just happened to walk with them. It could have been anybody. This is not about me. This is about healing. This is about the direction that we are choosing. And when we choose a direction that goes into healing, I feel this is when we're on the right path. But when we choose something, a topic, a direction that is based around the sickness, as you said,
Right.
yours was based around the COVID, mine based around grief. But when we then change direction and just focus on the healing and the getting better and the wellness, this is, I feel, where I would want everybody to be.
Yeah.
I follow quite a few people, as you can imagine, working in this space that work in a space of grief and that have chosen that as their destination. So they
Yeah.
define themselves around that having to stay
Yep.
stuck. And a lot of them have already uh, found a new partner after losing a husband or,
Right.
sort of moved forward like life is supposed to be. Life is supposed to move forward. And often
Yes.
to move forward, we have to move through things. We all know that.
Yes.
But then they have, created something where they get stuck. So I needed to bring this in because you shared that with me just before we went live. I have changed the direction of,
Yeah.
what we have created. So please share a little bit about that, what you have created and the direction that you're going in now, because I find that so important, that shift that you talked about and why you're doing it.
Oh, I agree. Well, for me,
Mm,
so I think the biggest part is learning to listen. And
mm,
I can't tell you how many people, I'm pretty intuitive, and a lot of people said to me, God put you in a coma so that you would learn to sit still and listen. There were a lot of things that
mm,
needed to happen and change. And
mm,
I was always open to change. I'm not resistant to change. I probably am
mm.
open to change more than I should be, if that's quantified. and and so this nonprofit, I was told in my coma to start this nonprofit. I got the name. Well, when I got out of the hospital, I was really sick for a long time, like I
Mm,
said, and I had a lot of the brain fog, and the clarity was like crazy because I literally incorporated a 501c3 nonprofit and a software company that I had never done before, for number 10 and number 11 startup companies within 3 months of getting out of the hospital. And I was still, like I said,
wow.
really, really not well. So I
Yeah.
knew that I had someone on my side pulling me through. Um, the easiest nonprofit for me at the time was to do it about long COVID, which are people that
Mm,
have had symptoms longer than 90 days that linger on. And there's
yeah.
over 100 million people suffering from long COVID. The challenge I found, because it's been going on 3 years now, two and a
Hmm.
half for the nonprofit. Um,
Yeah.
all this year, something in my gut just said something's not right, and I thought, well, I just started a podcast for only long COVID help, support, awareness, and I thought
Mm,
keep doing the podcast, but I canceled all the fundraisers, And I just was like, okay, I'm not ready to be done. There's something there, but I didn't really want to listen because I was involved in, my software company, trying to get that going and raise money for that. And just about 2 months ago, I was recording a podcast, and one of my guests was someone with long COVID. My guests were
Hmm.
only like caretakers of
Hmm.
long COVID, medical or holistic. That was the only
Hmm.
guest I had. This particular person had long COVID, and I found
Hmm.
myself, she was really wrapped up in, getting on Zooms with people and just really
Mm.
into the movement. And
Yeah.
I found myself like almost hyperventilating. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that anxiety, which I never had before COVID, started coming. And I felt her telling her story. I was reliving mine. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, like a ton of bricks like hit me. And right then, I'm in the middle of the podcast. I was basically told, this is not your mission anymore, and this
Mm.
is your last podcast. I actually had a hard time finishing the podcast because I
Yeah.
was so done. I just needed to hear that. Okay,
It's
so then it
incredible.
was
I
like
love the clarity.
partner. So I was gonna partner with another gal that had $120,000. I'm not dollar, 120,000 followers. She was a
Mm.
nurse. She had all the resources that we didn't have, that was in our mission, that we hadn't got.
Mm.
It would have been a
Yeah.
great, lovely partnership, but she didn't have a nonprofit. So we were going to combine. Do you know, her and I, we never reconnected. We were like in the process of figuring out how to do it. And she just like went
Wow.
away. Like, I didn't even reach out to her. I haven't said anything. I haven't
Incredible.
said, oh, this is, I just like it
Yeah.
all worked out. So I thought, I was going to give her my nonprofit. And then I thought, no, I'm in my third year. That's a big year for nonprofits, for grant money
Mm.
and things. I thought, no,
Mm.
I'm going to keep God told me to do this nonprofit. He didn't specifically
Mm.
say, go do it for long COVID. He just said,
Hmm.
this is your nonprofit. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, just change the mission. So now I'm like, what feels better? What serves? It's the philanthropy piece to my software company. So what
Hmm.
feels like something I can get up? I mean, this wasn't fun. Long COVID is not fun. It
Yeah.
was it was daunting, and it brought
Mm.
me in. Well, I want to be in wellness space. I was getting better all of a sudden, finally, after 2.5 years, and I didn't want to be in that sickness space, like you said. Or
Yeah.
just, it's that mindset. So
Yeah.
I thought, what would I want to do? And I love entrepreneurship through and through. So our new mission is basically women leading with purpose, which also goes
Mm.
back to my why and my purpose that I was told to do in all these
Hmm.
things while I was in my coma. So I feel like there's a whole bunch of stories behind that. And our mission is supporting women to be resilient, lead with purpose, passion, and presence. And there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that. But I feel like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, this lights me up because there's women
And
struggle.
that's what you want. That's
Yeah, and
that's what
women have a
lights me
hard
up. That
time.
if you have that moment, you know you're right path. So that's incredible. I
Yeah,
love when you have a guidance that gives you such clear
yeah,
direction and such clear answers to, okay, this obviously doesn't feel right anymore.
right.
Slightly inconvenient, bizarre when it happens right in the middle of the live podcast, but the answer was so clear, and I love that. I love that happened. And I would actually, I know we're sort of sidetracking here again, but I feel like we went through this way too fast. What I would love to get back to, if that's okay with you, Holly, you shared about something that touched me so deeply, something that I had never seen from that perspective before, that when we have a near death experience, that we are in this space of what we believe in. And
Yeah,
I have a couple of people that I talked to or interviewed that had near death experiences. I have always been really fascinated by the topic. I myself never had one. I had an out of body experience once, very briefly in meditation, which was incredible and also scared me, to be honest. I was like, oh,
does.
what's that? And I was back in my body. I'm like, what? And ever since, I've been sort of trying to get back into that space. But what I find touched me so deeply in the near death experience space was Anita Mujani's book Dying to Be Me, where she describes the other side, where she stands at that
Yeah,
what she calls what felt like a portal. And I have used that part of her book many times, also when I did celebrations of life. When I hold a celebration of life for a person that has passed, I often share these to share a glimpse of what can be on the other side, for hope, for love, for knowing that our loved ones who pass are in a beautiful space that is nothing but pure
Yes.
love. That's what I believe in. And as you
Yes.
said, everybody's beliefs are different. But I would love to hear if you would like to share what was that experience for you in the near death experience. What did you experience on the other side?
Oh, well, definitely pure love. You'll hear most people say
Mm,
that. Well, most. Some don't
yeah.
get to see so much light. And I think there's a
Mm,
reason for that. I think we're all
yeah.
entitled to unconditional love and light, right? So there's a
Mm,
reason they needed to see if they saw any darkness. I feel like
mm,
so there were a lot of gaps because I was in the process of writing this book and all these experiences, and there was a whole bunch of gaps with my near death. The out of body, got it. The spiritual, got it. But the near death, I
mm-hmm,
felt like there was just some pieces that I thought, out of integrity, how do I launch this book with a near death story if I don't really feel like I knew all the story? And if you
mm-hmm.
know me, which I know you don't, but I like to know everything. Like if there's a surprise, I want to know what it
Same.
is. But if you just surprise me, it's okay. Like that's
Yeah.
great. But if I know
Mm,
there's one coming, no, it ticks me off. Like if I and my husband will mess with me sometimes with presents and stuff. I don't like that. Don't do that. It bugs me. So this
mm,
is a weird thing that this is how this transpired. So a year ago in December, this December, I asked a friend of mine to do a hypnosis session. He had trained me in
mm-hmm,
hypnosis a few years ago.
mm-hmm,
So I trusted him. I knew him. I liked
mm-hmm,
him, everything there. And I said, would you do a hypnosis session on me on my near death experience? Because there's some
mm-hmm.
gaps missing that I feel like out
Yeah.
of integrity for my
Wow.
book, I need to have. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, he was intrigued. He was like you. He's like, oh, these fascinate me. And he's like, let me think about it. And I'm like, you have to think about it? I'd be like all over that one. By the way, hypnosis session on a friend one time.
Yeah.
She had multiple personality. She had 4 personalities. Oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing I ever did. I talked to all of
Mm-hmm.
them. It was so cool. Anyway, side.
Amazing.
But so I was like, you have to think about it. What are you talking about? So long story
Yeah.
short, I go down there. It's about an hour and 45-minute session. And that was where, oh my gosh, it was the best thing I did because not only did I hear the rest of my message. So my message was yes about love,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't, and I know your podcast is on grief, so like I'm going to just sum up real quick what happened after I got out
Mm-hmm.
of the hospital. You would think my children and my siblings and everybody would just be gravitated to you because you almost died and they almost
Mm-hmm.
lost you and they watched you at the brink of death, and you would think that. No, for 2 years I had the worst 2 years of my whole entire life. I had to
Mm-hmm.
process grief from losing grandchildren, my mom, my
Yeah.
brother, all the grief all at once because I was in the midst of losing to a brother ended up adopting one of my grandkids. It's a long story, but I
Mm-hmm.
have it 10 times anything, divorce, anything I've ever been through in my life, 10 times that I went through worst times in my life where every day I wished I would have died. I was like, why did you bring me through life to bring me this hell? Like, why am I
Yeah.
living this? And there's some lessons in there. I'm still learning some of them, but it all goes, the story all goes. So the message I ended up coming out from the hypnosis session was, if I would have remembered this, by the way, the 2 years before, it would have changed, I think, the lessons I needed to learn those 2 years and that sacrifice I
Mm-hmm.
needed to make. But the
Yeah.
lesson was love them where they're at.
Mm.
So if I would have known that where they're at, it takes judgment out of what you're
Mm.
thinking about someone, and it
Yeah.
changes to me the energy around it. Whereas, I mean, I'm not proud of a lot of my behavior that 2 years. It was awful. I brought out the
Mm.
very worst in me. You have these spiritual experiences, and then all of a sudden you become this person that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get that. And so I got that out of it. And then I ended up getting two messages. Remember, I said I got told to start the nonprofit, and then I
Mm-hmm.
got told, the other thing I got told that I didn't share was for this software company I was building. Um, I was going to partner with a billionaire who would have backed it, right? And it would have
Mm-hmm.
been great. I would have had all the money I needed to get this done. I got told not to partner with them. I had pitched them the day I found out I had COVID. They wanted to work with
Wow.
me. And of
Yeah.
course they did. I had a great idea. And I got told not to. It'll take you longer, which it has, but it wasn't the right thing to do. So I listened, and
Mm-hmm.
we created this logo. I'll just tell you about that really cool. So we created a logo. for this. And I didn't know why, but I knew it needed to have a tree in it. When he brought me through this
Hmm.
hypnosis session to my near death experience, where I ended up, one of the first things where I ended up, right in front of me was a tree. And I
Hmm.
was like, I felt my whole body just go, oh my gosh, I created that logo. I didn't create the logo actually. By the way,
Yeah.
the logo has 11 leaves and 11 branches on it. One, one, one,
Wow.
one. My birthday's also
I
one,
love it.
one. There's a bunch
No
of
way.
synchronicities. Yeah. But I saw that tree and I was
I
like,
love it.
I literally created this company logo and whole thing around this tree that I didn't even remember was in my near death experience. What that I was told
Mm.
not to partner with to do. So it was like, okay, that was one thing that happened that was so amazing. The other thing he told me, or one of the other things he said was, more will be revealed to you when the time is right. And remember how I like to know everything? I was so at peace
Yes.
with that. I was like, I know.
Really?
And,
Okay. I
and
was
when
like,
I get
I
it, I
thought you
get
would
it.
be
So
impatient.
like
No,
the
you were,
the second
that's
thing
amazing.
that was verification to me in the hypnosis session was the nonprofit. um when I did my first gala fundraiser for it, I knew I gave these little round wood hearts, or not hearts, ornaments, like because it was around
Hmm.
Christmas time. This said hope, and in every
Mm.
bag that was gold, I had to put a little pink rose quartz heart in there. I don't know why.
Mm.
Same thing with the tree logo. I just was like, didn't think about it, just put it in there.
Yeah.
In my near death, when I ended up in the light side, all this energy that was forming in these colors were forming these pink rose quartz hearts. And then we're like going to the light. And I saw those and I was like, same thing. It was like, you were told to start this nonprofit and you put those
Mm.
hearts in there, like creating. It's just like amazing what we do. And I didn't even know. Like I knew, but I didn't remember. So all things will be revealed to you when the time is right. I'm okay with that. The other
Mm.
thing I'd like to share is my um life review, so to speak.
Hmm.
Okay. It was all I saw was
Is that
good.
what happened in
Now,
the near death experience as well?
yeah. So
The
there
life
was all
review?
I
Yeah.
saw was good. I know there's bad, right? And I
Mm.
think that I my heart couldn't take seeing the pain that I
Mm.
caused other people. So I was only
Mm.
able to, and maybe I'll remember that later, but I was only able to see all the love and the hugging and the peace and the
Mm.
joy surrounding around that, with those pink quartz colored hearts flying everywhere. That was what I got. And I thought,
Mm.
thank you, because my heart needed that. I just think there's
Yeah.
another thing I believe. I believe that the pain that we cause people here on earth, we will have to feel what we made them feel.
Mm.
And at that moment, when that was happening to me with my brother stealing basically one of my grandkids, my heart was just ripped out. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, to have him feel the pain he caused me, let alone my brother. Like
Mm.
I'm not that person. I don't wish hate. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's something for listeners to remember as we process our grief and as we process all these things through life. Remember what we're making other people feel, because
Mm.
as bad as we feel about something, that person that did that to us is going to have to feel that. And I believe that with all my heart. And it's sad, really.
Mm. Yeah.
So love them where they're at.
I love that message. It's really beautiful. It's very straightforward, love them where they're at. And also that constant reminder that people do the best they can at the time being with what they had available. That's a really tough one sometimes to believe in, depending on what you're suffering through. But my biggest spiritual belief was always like there is a lesson that we pick. And even, through losing my husband, I had a very very early on spiritual epiphany, I want to call it, where I had this moment of realization that we chose this. This is our
Yeah.
soul contract. This is what we came here to experience. And this is now what I'm supposed to do with this. It took me a lot longer to process that and really integrate that information into my heart. But the epiphany, the understanding of it happened really early on. I'm talking like within the first couple of weeks of Rob's passing, which was very sudden.
Right.
So In a nutshell, I know we both said this podcast will be way too short for both of us to talk about all these things, but can you share with us where this led you to? Like we already know about the nonprofit organization. You sort of touched on the book that you were writing. Has the book been published yet or not yet?
No, not yet. I'm still hoping for the end of the
So
year.
we're like,
It's close.
okay, let's aim for Christmas, hey,
I'm going to tell
so
you
that
the name
everybody
though.
can buy it for
It's
a Christmas present.
so the
Um,
software actually is a retreat leader booking
yeah,
hosting site. So
yeah.
picture like an Airbnb, but for venues for retreats
Hmm.
and hosts that do retreats. It's all about retreats.
Where were
So
you
the
when I
book
needed
is
you?
called Retreat. The book's called Retreat Forward:
Hmm.
My Journey from NDE
Love
to
it.
CEO.
This is incredible. I already love the title. Absolutely. Retreat forward. This is incredible. I love it. I do want to hear about it when you have published
Yeah,
it. And
sure.
I'll definitely make sure to share this far
Thank
and
you.
wide as well. And for people watching this, I want to share a few links where people can actually connect with you. What is the best way for people to reach out to you when they want to connect, when they want to hear a little bit more about uh, either the nonprofit organization or the book or, the retreat space? How can we connect
Yeah.
to you?
I'm on all the social media platforms, but my email's just my name, Holly, with Holly. And then so
Mm-hmm.
Holly at hollyporter.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can email me there
Mm-hmm.
if you want. Hollyporter.com is my website. That's my personal website. You're welcome
Mm-hmm.
to go check things out there. It'll link to the nonprofit, which is called
Mm-hmm.
adventurebucketwish.org. It's still in process right now, changing that mission because the mission
Mm-hmm.
changed. And I
Yeah.
think all of us, we got to really be open to that, open to change, because there are things we get told to do, and when it serves its purpose we move on, and we need to be willing to shift.
Love it. Change is the only constant in life, really. So
Thank you.
perfect. Holly, it was such a delight having you here. I wish I'm absolutely certain actually that we will reconnect at some stage in some way, shape, or form. And I
I
would
hope so.
definitely love to chat a little bit more about the retreat space as well, because I would have needed you 2, 3, 4 years ago when I was running my retreats in the Loving Life After Loss space. That was always my biggest challenge, finding the right location that was perfect for my guests. And yeah, so I love that you are offering a solution there. Um, for the purpose of this podcast here now, if our listeners could just have one thing that you'd really like for them to take away from this podcast, can you kindly wrap us up and give us a bit of a takeaway here? What is the one thing that you'd really like people to get out of this?
I would say that'll probably be different every day you asked me that, but today I would
Mm,
say listen to your gut. Everybody has intuition, whether they believe that or
mm,
not, and usually it's right. And so I would
yeah.
challenge you to listen, because your heart usually knows the way, and it's usually the right way for you.
I love it. You are so speaking my language. I truly believe that we all have this intuition. For some, it means that they need to reconnect to it, or they can if they want
Yeah.
to. So, thank you so much for being here today. I'm absolutely blown away by the stories you have to share. I'm really, really happy that we connected. And thank you for sharing so willingly here on Unsilence Grief. For everyone listening here, if you find value in this, please feel free to share this. Please feel free to subscribe for weekly updates on Unsilence Grief. And with that, I'm signing off for today. This is Holly Porter and Maria Leslie signing off. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. I cannot believe I just wanted to stop the live stream.